Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and this one's going to seem a little interesting if you're new here. You're wondering what the heck is Draft Chat. Today is the first installment. You're going to see it say episode 7 because you're probably like, where are the other 6 episodes? You can go back to last year, check out the receipts for the 2022 NBA Draft. Had a lot of great guests on last year, talked about big boards and mock drafts and things like that. People like Tyler Rucker, Tyler James, Ryan Hammer. We talked through a lot of really cool stuff with the NBA last year in the draft. But here to talk about my 2023 NBA Draft Big Board version number 1. If you're completely new here or new to this process with me, this year I am officially doing a big board on February 1st, March 1st, etc. So each month we'll have a different iteration or something will change about it. So for context, I'm going to post the link below as well as it'll pop up on the screen. You'll be able to see it at the top with YouTube. You'll see the little eye. Click on that to see the full big board on twopointerspodcast.com. You'll be able to have access to the full first 30 picks or 30 players prospects that I have, their places, their ages, things like that to contextualize where I might have had them. Obviously, this show will be a nice dumping ground for where you can see that information. But each month you'll see a different update. Next month will be the full 60 at that point. And then at that point from March on, it will be all tweaks, risers, fallers. You'll see the tiers of how far they fell and how far they rose. So super excited to finally kind of put that out there and see this. The plan is to be Saturdays every other week until we get to April, and then I'd like to do it weekly depending on how much space I have on my hard drive. So all that being said, thank you for hearing all that for a moment before I get to the guest. Don't forget 2 pointers at wenergy.com or the link in the description below to 10% off your order. So without further ado, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the show. Julian, my friend, how are you?
Doing all right. Excited to talk some draft. I have gotten a brief look at your big board. I didn't want to take too many looks at it before we talk, so I wanted to get kind of like a first reaction to it. This is honestly, I think, one of the more interesting draft classes just because of how absolutely loaded it is, especially at the top. I think there's probably 13 to 15 guys at the top of this class that have like legitimate superstar potential. And I think that there's some guys that people are a little bit too high on right now. That's my personal opinion. We'll get to it, but just to kind of give a little foreshadowing there. Yeah, I'm really excited. I've never been more excited about a draft class in my entire life, I don't think.
I think for me too, it's fun because I'm having this weird conundrum, and then we'll jump right in because we're going to do these in almost chunks in a sense for the sake of the viewer's sanity and the sake of my sanity. But we're having this moment, or I'm having this moment, where I love this class because I'm spending so much time on it, and then I kind of disagree in the sense that like I'm with you. Like I think there's a lot of star talent, but I think there's this like complete, for me at least, line in the sand where like I have 16, 15-ish guys where I'm like, these are my guys, 15, whatever. They'll be in that order by the end of the year. And after that, I have super big question mark, at least one big question mark about every guy 15 and below. Right now it's 16. It will change. It will update. It will obviously be ebbing and flowing. That was the point of that intro. But right now there's about 16 guys. We'll talk about them in those tiers in just a second. But to be clear on tiers for the listener, like I don't mean literally like I want to do them eventually. I'm not a guy that does them this early, but like I don't have tiers where I think this is where this guy's going to be all-star, superstar, et cetera. It's hard to project that stuff. I mean tiers as in like 1 through 5 we're going to talk about in order. 6 through 10, just understand where Julia's thoughts are and kind of just react. And first time ever I'm having a chance to talk about it publicly other than the article you can find on the twopointerspodcast.com talking about the Dariq Whitehead, Terquavion Smith, guys we'll talk about in a minute. Some NBA draft in-person scouting thoughts from the other day, NC State at Duke, so or vice versa. But all right, anything else before we get started? Anything kickstart? Anything you're itching to say before we start prospect evaluating?
Yeah.
Love it. I went generic for the YouTube audience. If you're looking, I went generic draft, and we'll do like the hardcore red draft like color. Hey, I'll go ahead and turn that on for YouTube. How unplanned this looks, but I don't know. I think of stocks. I think of red. So there you go. At least my stocks right now. So. Speaking of stock, let's talk about the stock. So we have not talked about publicly. You and I talk about draft every single day. But for the listeners, they don't know what this is about. So we're going to run through 1 through 5. I'm going to read them for the sake of hearing them a couple times for listeners. And then your job today is to just have fun and just pick me apart. But don't corner me because this is January, right? If I made this board in June with everything we know, okay, maybe. But like these guys still have time to expand on their weaknesses and expand on their strengths. So
Yeah.
obviously there are things that I'm going to have to defend myself on. I get it. But a lot of it is philosophy. We've talked about it. A lot of it is philosophy, like what I think in value versus what someone else might. Not just you, but in general. We'll get to a couple guys in the 19 20 range that are perfect examples of that. So number one, I do have, shocker, Victor Wembanyama, the big out of Metropolitan 92. Scoot Henderson, number two, the greatest guard prospect I've ever scouted. I've only been doing this a couple of years, but greatest guard prospect I've ever seen other than maybe John Wall, which was a decade and some change, which is crazy. Got to see him locally, too, when I was younger, which was really cool. He came to my high school and played. Scoot Henderson, number two. Cam Whitmore, number three. The Cam Whitmore 3 Club. We talked about that with Stephen G a few weeks ago. Dariq Whitehead at number 4 and Jarris Walker at number 5. So, giving you your first 5 here, obviously we don't have to talk about Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson unless there's something you're just itching to say about them, because they're in the places they're going to be for probably the next 6 months. But Cam Whitmore, Dariq Whitehead, and Jarris Walker, where would you like to begin?
No, I mean, you completely summed it up talking about. I mean, I don't think anybody in the world who's in the draft community has Scoot and Victor other than 1 and 2. So there's no need to elaborate on that. Um, it's tough for me because the guy that I actually had at number 3 was Nick Smith. But with his injury, it's a real tough sell right now to see when he's going to come back, what he's going to look like. Um, Obviously, he's had multiple health issues this year. I'm starting to buy into the Cam Whitmore at 3 chain a little bit more. I've had him as low as 5, but looking at it, I I hate to say it, but I see it. I see it. He's just too powerful of an athlete. He can shoot the ball. He's a good defender as well. I mean, he's I don't think that he is. You know what it is? The reason that I'm hesitant to put him at 3, because I think that there's guys like Jason Tatum and Paul George and that kind of wing archetype that I don't think Cam Whitmore quite has the dribbling ability to be one of those guys. Sure, he's got like the power to get downhill, and that's fine. But I haven't seen a real inkling of playmaking that suggests to me that with some of the other guys in this class that I'm looking for top 3, so like the Thompson twins especially, like I don't know. I think that his upside is a bit limited other than as like a 3 and D guy who can put the ball on the floor. That's just me.
So there's a lot to, and I don't want to like spend 20 minutes on Cam Whitmore, but I do want to address the fact that like there's a lot of good stuff there. Like my comp for him currently, and I'm very, very early on the comps. I don't like to do them unless it helps me. I've told you this many times off recording and on recording. Unless I'm contextualizing a player to help me understand it, a comp is purely for my understanding's sake. I will never post comps publicly unless it makes sense to. So Cam Whitmore's comp for me is Paul George. And even Paul George, the thing that you said, like as soon as you said it, I was like, well, obviously that's what I've written down. I'm going to agree with you. But what I want to be clear on is even Paul George, when they were in the Eastern Conference Final against the Heat, he still couldn't dribble then. He's really become a good dribbler in his like late 20s, which is just all of a sudden like this weird jump he made. And that's fine. He's had the ball more in spots where Kawhi Leonard's not there. It's going to be forced to do that. And like even Jaylen Brown in his development, who's now a 27-point per game scorer, 26.9 as of like yesterday, but he's still a lackluster dribbler in the sense of an NBA level person. So, and I think that's a decent comp, even though the height's a little different. But my question for you was like with Cam Whitmore, I like how you brought it up, was what is the thing right now if he walks onto an NBA floor in the second round of the playoffs? What is he doing for a team right now?
I mean, he's shooting threes.
And you
he's
trust
driving.
him. You trust him in that role completely.
As a catch and shoot guy, I'm not sure.
That's where I'm trying to think through right now.
I think that well, here's the thing: is he is my big thing with wings that I've always been saying recently is wings have to do one of 2 things really, really like elite wings have to do one of 2 things well. One, they have to be able to pull up off the dribble, your Paul George or Jason Tatum's, or they have to be able to get to the cup whenever they want to, pretty much. Your LeBrons, your Zions, guys like that, right? Obviously, I'm not comparing Cam Whitmore to that caliber of player right now. But Cam Whitmore is a player who can pretty much get to the cup whenever he wants to. And so I think that he'll be and his jumper is good enough that you have to respect it. So I think from that regard, that's why I think that you'll be able to rely on him in the playoffs. But I don't want him as my primary option in the playoffs yet. I don't think that he's going to come into the league and be a primary shot creator.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm probably gonna like. I think three, and I want to be clear with the listeners. Like, this is definitely not a permanent conversation. Like, this is something that I very well may waver on eventually. But that's kind of the problem for me. As I told you, there's really outside of Scoot and Victor, there's not anybody I'm in love with. So I went with just a lot of the upside that he was just at least good at a lot of things and not bad at anything, which was nice because he's even in. I think the injury there was like a handful of these guys. Nick Smith happened obviously later in the season, but the injury thing, like he's just he doesn't seem like he's bothered anymore. But a lot of these prospects don't either. So it's kind of like, when am I eventually being like, okay, we've had time to recover? But a lot of these have been foots, ankles, shins, knee. Like all these guys in this top 15, 20 range have all had injuries that should hamper their college career for a few weeks. Like that's understandable for a second. That was kind of a weird segue for me to talk about Dariq Whitehead, but it was. But it's. I mean, they're for me 3 and 4 right now, and obviously subjectively, I got to see and 2pointerspodcast.com plug. Got to see him in person, and I'm texting you, like, I know you're at the Sixers game, but I'm texting you consistently, like, okay, here's something I just saw that was amazing, and then here's something I just saw that I was like, oh, crap, I'm, like, moving him as we speak. Like, and I'm not overreacting. I want to be clear. Like, 4 is really high. I get it. But I did not make a board for the entire cycle until January 1st. Like, I obviously worked on it and tweaked it to get it to this point. And there was things that I saw that I was really excited about as a playmaker, as a shot creator, as a ball handler. There was a lot of things I was just really excited about. And I was like, okay, if I'm not in love with anybody else that strongly where I believe in, and sometimes I get caught in this believe it thing. This is me just talking through some receipts, right? 2 years ago, you can go through the Jonathan Kuminga stuff. Pick me apart. I don't care. I still think Kuminga is going to be a really good player. But there are things that he can do that I think he can be valuable at the NBA level, whether I think he's a star or not. And I think that's where big boards get confused, is I think people see 3, they see 4, they see 5, and they think NBA all NBA defender. They see all NBA player, they see all-star, they see, and that is not what you have to get at those places, right? Some of the best players in the world right now, and I'm not going to rattle them off because we don't have time, some of the best players in the world vying for all-star spots were drafted after the top 10.
Yep.
It is what it is. You're not going to get that stuff right. So at that point, I am buying into a guy I believe in. I would love to sit here and say I've had 2 weeks to talk about this with you and prepare and give you like all these examples, but I don't care because those examples don't matter because they're not the same type of players. Jaylen Brown was the 3rd pick overall. It took him 7 years to get to the point he is as an offensive player. Okay, like that's where I'm with Dariq Whitehead. I want you to pick me apart into a sense, but I want people to understand that is because partly there are things that I believe in. I got to see the shot live. The mechanics are really good. Right, there are things there where there's nothing I'm worried about. There's no Drew Hanlon that needs to come in and save his life at 19 years old. Like he is a capable shooter, right? The ball handling is great. Even at driving into the lane, there's stuff that's unfortunate, but I got to see the switchable defense from them again. Anyway, I'm going to digress and let you speak, but I just want to be clear about why he's there and understand that some of it is just things that I saw that I think is valuable for NBA teams.
I mean, I think on paper, he has the potential to be a top 5 pick. If you watch him play, really good switchable defender. He can create off the dribble. I don't think he does a great job of creating a ton of space personally. But I think that
I'm
the
with you, by
big
the way,
thing,
completely. The space creation is not good.
Him and Keontae George have the same issue where for whatever reason, like
Bingo.
their handles and it must be some sort of acceleration, deceleration. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but those are 2 guys that the way that I like to put it is some guys are tough shot makers when they have to be, and some guys are tough shot makers because they have to be, if that makes sense. Does that do you understand that in a way?
Yeah, they're forced into a role that makes them that level of development has to happen faster for shot creation and make, and that's bad for them sometimes. It is.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes you'll see Dariq Whitehead taking shots that are tough that he probably doesn't need to take, and I think again, he's a guy who I currently have him outside of my top 5. I personally that's just because I have Nick Smith higher because I think Nick Smith is a more proven shot maker and is a better space creator. But I think that the Dariq Whitehead case is definitely as a 2-way player. And I think that the reason that a lot of people went out on him is because he hasn't been playing well to start the season, possibly due to injury, possibly because of an adjustment period, whatever. But there's still plenty of time for him to kind of justify his stock. And I think that the way he does that is what he's starting to do now, is kind of come into his own. Do what he was doing in high school. If he can prove, for him, it's not about the talent, because we know the talent's there. for him right now to be justifying himself as a top 10 pick is proving that he can do what he did in high school at the college level. And I think that that's a great position to be in as a player. But I think in this class, there's a few guys that just I believe are more talented. Straight up, like, yeah, he's a talented player. He is. It's pretty hard for me to really seeing him fail, especially because of how useful he is as a defender. Um, but it's not like I think in most other drafts he'd be a top 5 pick. But for me in this one, I don't think he is.
I think
Um,
the depth thing's interesting because you mentioned earlier that was like your point about this draft is it just seems so good and so deep and like I think it's just a lot of people really like a chunk of people where it's like okay I like Whitehead, Walker, George, Thompson, Amen Thompson.
yeah,
That's a good chunk. After that, I'm like, okay, there's things about, and I don't want to jump ahead here, but I jumped ahead a little bit. But like, there's sections where I'm like, okay, I like one guy here just because he's ranked here versus here doesn't mean whatever. But I want to address this because I told you this multiple times and you agreed with me and I got to see it and understand it. Like I say a lot, I'm going to be careful, but he is one of the guys this year that is affected by coaching situation. I just like, that was the worst coach team I've seen in a long time. I'm not talking Duke specific. I'm talking worst coach team, period. Like I had a chance to go to the John Wall Holiday Invitational this year in Raleigh. There were better coached high school teams. Like I'm dead serious. Like that is not a joke, and that is like there were like Combine Academy is coached better than Duke right now.
yeah,
Shout out to Combine Academy. But like there was moments where John like just put his hands up and was like and just let Derek do whatever he wanted. They were down 28 in the first half.
yeah,
Like that was the worst. I've had a very like I'm being very transparent. I've had a lot of opportunities to see Duke play in my life, Coach K, etc. I'm very very fortunate for it because I can say without a shadow of a doubt that was the worst coach Duke team I've ever seen in my entire life. It was so bad, like camaraderie falling apart. Just like there was just so many things, not knowing what to run when. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Got picked apart by a team that. I'm not being biased at any stretch. They're a good team. They're now a quad one win if a team beats them. NC State is as of today, which I was really happy to see after beating Virginia Tech. But it showed you that was a quality loss for Duke, regardless. But it's also the fact that they just dismantled them, and Derek Whitehead couldn't do anything, even though he did shoot the ball decently well. That was my point.
yeah. I do agree that. Well, they've billed Shire as a great recruiter. Um, Never follow a legend because Shire is not.
Shire's a great recruiter. He was sitting on the sideline
He
watching
really-
Dylan Harper play, or Dylan Harper. Like he stuck around and watched guys and talked to him, and I got to watch him recruit live. It was awesome. Like
Yeah.
he's a great great talker, great this, great that. Like he does really really well on things that is not X's and O's on the floor right now, and that can change with time. I want to be clear.
Yeah, and I think that definitely hurts Tariq a little bit. It actually hurts the next guy. Well, not coaching specifically, just the role hurts the next guy.
That was going to segue it perfectly too. So thank you for that. That was good. Let's give him for 5 minutes of fame. So
Jarris, so you know this that I've had Jarris Walker at 4 on my board almost the entire season.
yep.
I love the guy. I think that he is such a obvious defensive wing in the NBA. Like so obvious with upside because his handle is underrated, his passing is underrated. Um, he's another one of those guys that just does everything well, and his defense and his rim protection are what make him an elite prospect. Um, Obviously, we've seen guys who are, oh, they do everything well. You're Josh Jackson, you're Stanley Johnson, you're who's the dude out of Stanley Johnson was the Arizona. Who's the dude out of Syracuse? Wesley Johnson.
Wesley Johnson. That's who I thought you were talking about.
Yeah, Wesley Johnson, Justice Winslow. Like we've seen guys like this before who it's like, oh, they do everything kind of well. No, Jarris Walker's elite, like an elite weak side rim protector. He's a really good rebounder, which is why Kelvin Sampson recruited him. He has I genuinely believe in this kid. And I completely agree with him being a top 5 pick. And I know there's a lot of people who probably have him outside the top 10. I'll be straight up, you're wrong. Like
I think the buy-in. So we're in agreement on Jarris, but the buy-in for me is the same as it is for Derek for different reasons. That's why they're ranked the way they are, right?
Yeah,
there are things that I believe in as an NBA player. I like the IMG Academy thing you pointed out, where I don't know if you said it, but you mentioned the dribbling and it seems like he came in and had all these things ready already. It was kind of wild for especially a Kelvin Sampson type of guy. Like I don't know how many more teams he would have fit that well, right? Like I think that was the perfect place for him to go. But like IMG Academy spit out Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Simons, all different type of players, but a couple of bigs in here. Bruno Fernando, Josh Green, Kenyon Martin Jr., Jaden Springer, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Mark Williams, Musa Diabate. So like they're just spitting out big guys. Like they're like, here you go. We have the system that helps fit you, and like they just let them play, and they obviously turn out decently well. Those are all very, very lazy comparisons, but I'm just giving you the IMG has a proven track record thing. He's given me everything else outside of that, and he comes from a good background that I believe in.
Yeah.
And Kelvin Sampson to even, let's go to IMG. Where should I go? I don't know. Let me play with one of the best college coaches of all time. Let's just like go to the next guy, and then where's he going to go from there? Like, imagine the Spurs get him with some bad lottery luck.
Dude, him and Sohan as a front court sounds fantastic to me.
The shooting scares me a little bit, but yes, I'm like with you. But like Greg Popovich and that developmental system sounds, I'm in. Like,
sounds a lot of fun.
Sign me up. I'm good.
Yeah.
Stamp it, seal it, approve it. Like I'm good. That would be 3 legendary development systems back to back to back in his career in the matter of 18, 19, and 20 years old.
Yep.
Sign me up. I'm in. Like, can we just like work for the Spurs now? Like that was easy. Like there's our application. That was it, right? There are things that like I would love to go through a little bit more. Like the shot efficiency is obviously, the opportunity's not there. I get it, but when it's there, like he just showed it the other day against SMU. Like it was great. Like it was there. I was very excited. Hit threes consistently. Sure, but I want to see it for more than one game against SMU. I guess would be the point.
Yeah, I think for me, the big thing is just kind of seeing improvement with the jumper. I don't think that his jumper is like broken. Um, and like he has so many other of the necessary, like so many of the other necessary skills that I think is worth it. And I think if a lot of times, I think a couple of guys we're going to get to later, people are getting caught up in this is like, oh, if the jump shot's there, he's probably not going to be able to do a lot of these things. But like people missed on Scotty Barnes because of that.
Yep.
You know?
It's a fair point. Jonathan Isaac, even though he hasn't turned out well because of injuries, like that was something that the shot was inconsistent. People were scared of it, and he's still a top 6 pick that's a good defender.
Exactly.
He's not a he's a role player. He's not a star, but still the same point.
I mean, even Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, whose jump shot was fundamentally broken.
Yeah, but
lasted
two was just so high. Like that, I don't know.
I mean,
hindsight's 2020, but yeah.
Yeah, but the point being that he lasted 7-8 years in the NBA because he's a really high quality role player.
He was. All right, I think this is the tier of really high quality role players, so I hate to keep segueing perfectly, but for the sake of time, I want to keep making sure these chunks are at least addressed. We're not going to be able to talk about every guy in every single chunk, but I'm going to go through the next tier here. Keontae George at 6, Amen Thompson at 7 from Overtime Elite. Nick Smith Jr., you mentioned with the injuries, we kind of touched on him. I don't have a lot to say yet because a lot of this stuff's proven, but it's more about there's things that I won't be able to see if he doesn't come back that I'm scared about. Like I can't see him finish through contact for the rest of the year if he doesn't play. Right? I can't see like his ability to score at the rim consistently over and over again, and he's not there. It's kind of hard for me to move him. So Nick Smith right now at 8, Terquavion Smith at number 9, and then Asar Thompson. And I want to address the Terquavion Smith thing before it even comes up in tweets and Instagram messages. But I've seen the kid too many times not to have him higher than most people in this cycle. And the fact that Rafael Barlow is saying publicly very, very good things and moving him up his board, I'm in good company. So, I've talked about him plenty, and I'm just going to be clear that he is at 9 for a reason, and that number's not changing for a long time, probably. So go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he is outside my top 10 right now. The only guy that I actually think should be in the top 10 that isn't, and I mean, this is a bit of a difference of opinion. I'm not as sold on Keontae George as the majority of other scouts. I think Cason Wallace has to be a top 10 pick. Like, we can probably touch on him at some point in the next
year for sure. He's in the next year for sure. I want to talk about him because I got to watch him against Alabama the other day for most of the game, and I have some thoughts.
That's something I won't budge on. And the Thompson twins, but I want to talk about the Thompson twins at the same time here because yes, I know they're different.
I feel bad for them. I really do.
Well, wait.
Everyone just like I want to talk about them together, and I'm like, unless people do a deep dive of one or the other, I know I get it. I just feel so bad for them. I try so hard not to be like, and I tried to rank them accordingly because I do feel differently about them. I mean, I have them 4 spots apart, which is really high, really big difference. So
I only want to put them together because they're playing in the same system.
Oh yeah, no, I understand what you mean. I was just giving you time to portray that for the listeners because it
does. And I think that you got to look at them from 2 different lights. Amen. Well, look, obviously, let's talk about the similarities first. athleticism is one of a kind. I don't think there are many other players in draft history, NBA history, who have had that unique kind of athleticism in the way that they use their athleticism. There's
They
nothing
would
like
have
that.
finished at second in vertical jump last year and fourth. Amen. Second, All-Star fourth. Just
Exactly.
just throwing that out there for last year's context, which was very
It's
good for
it's
athleticism.
preposterous. And then
Second and fourth.
the other similarity is the defense. They're both super active defenders, really
It's a
willing
good
to
word.
chase down for block, get chase down blocks. Like they pester ball handlers. They move their feet really well. They stay in front of guys really well. They don't make a ton of defensive mistakes, given the fact that they're 18 years old. Yes, I know we can talk about the OTE stuff all we want, and I think there's mixed reviews on that. But now let's talk about the differences. Ahmed is a legitimate playmaker. And I think that he is much better at attacking off the dribble and finding guys than Osar is. They both have great crossovers, don't get me wrong. Um, but I think that Osar fits much more into a 3 and D role, and Amen is much more of a primary creator. So I think that's why people tend to have Amen higher. I think that Amen, because of the abilities of primary creator, has top five potential. Like I would probably put him in my top five over Derek Whitehead. But I think Osar in the 6 to 10 range is super valid. Like if the offense, and I think that with both of them, everyone has concerns about the shot, which I think they've been doing a really good job of working on. But it's the same thing we talked about a few minutes ago with who is it that we were talking about it
Cam
with Jarris
Whitmore, Drake
Walker.
Whitehead, Jarris Walker, all of
With
them
Jarris
had
Walker,
shotting.
like
All of them had shot inconsistencies for what it's worth.
yeah, I mean, but like if the shot develops, these two kids are going to be people are going to be asking why they didn't go higher, I think, and especially on
People are going to ask that regardless. If Amen doesn't go
I
three, people are going to. You're going to hear every team that didn't draft him. You know, the whole like draft grade or winners losers on June 23rd.
yeah,
Every one of those is going to be the team that didn't take Amen Thompson, and I'm going to hate it because I hate winners losers. But at the same time, it's based on what you feel about these players. So I do them every year. I don't care, even though I hate them. But like the grade's going to be great. It's going to some team's going to pass on him at 3, and it's
yep,
going to go at 4. And then we're going to look back and go, well, haha, that's why the team at 3 was a loser, and they're going to end up getting like a Jarris Walker, and it's going to be amazing. So it's like
yeah.
it's just the context of it is what's stupid to me. But
I
anyway,
think I think the other thing I want to emphasize, before I want to get to my next point about these guys, about like other guys in the draft, is like the Thompsons are both really good kids. Like super humble. I've heard nothing but like great things about their character. And that's a huge testament to their parents and a huge testament to them. But that's another thing that I look at with players is like high character guys, I think really tend to succeed no matter where they go. So they're
no
kind of
idea the percentage, but they always work out.
they're location proof.
Yeah,
That's what I'll call it. Like
that's good.
high character guys are location proof. Um, and so I think the Thompson twins are pretty location proof. So that's I don't know.
So no, I'm
Um,
with you. I don't want to spend forever on them because I plan on doing actually this pod will go out. The plan is Saturday, the week of January 8th. We're recording this on Sunday, January 8th. We're not saying anything that's time sensitive, so it doesn't matter. But I plan to put this out like that weekend, like create the Saturday schedule for this again. I plan on doing a deep dive of them if I have time. Wednesday night, I think, is what I have it scheduled for because I have some time and don't have to wake up Thursday morning really early because I really want to just sit down and spend an hour on each one or more, right? And understand and I want to like create a pause in between. Like I want to like go watch Anthony Black for 30 minutes and come back. Like I want to create that gap where I'm like, okay, I watched one of them, I contextualized what they were and understood, and I want to see it and really understand some of the things because I think it's really cool that the OT is very accessible. Like I think that's actually starting to kind of sell me a little bit more is I'm able to at least like there's no excuse. Like we're seeing these guys. They're healthy, they're playing, even if it's not great competition, that's okay. Guys overseas don't play great competition sometimes and they get drafted in the top 15. I mean, some of those Australian league is good. I'm just throwing out the first league I thought of, but like the Turkish second league, there's guys that get drafted in the middle of the second round that don't play against good pros ever, and they get drafted in the second round. So it's like I'm just contextually just understand that like there are people that yes, some of these guys, but they do have some good prospects in that realm. Like they're not this year's draftable maybe, or they're not the best. They won't be NBA players, but they're not horrible kids. Like they were good high school recruits, etc. So There's a lot more I can think about them, but the only other thing I would touch on in this segment or this tier is just the Keontae George thing. I saw some things this week, and I was really impressed. I'm not saying the defense isn't like NBA ready. It's there. It's good. But when he's the primary defender on Mike Miles most of the second half, and Mike Miles scores 35, he's not the primary defender by any means. He was the primary defender on switches and things. Like, they got him against Mike Miles a good amount of times, even though the matchup doesn't exactly fit Keontae. But he guarded him more than he should have been for the size, the strength, etc. I do think his NBA body is not there yet for George, so I think there's some question marks for me. I'm definitely not the number one in the Keontae George fan club. Like, that would be my friend Ryan Hammer, but I'm happy with 6 right now, and I think that may change, and I think I'm leaning towards the other direction that this board says right here behind me. So
Yeah,
even though he's played well,
yeah,
consider that. So
I'm with you. I've never had him in my top 10 either. Him and Derek. I think that the big thing with Keontae that I touched on it earlier with Derek that concerns me is just the lack of burst is really, really scary for me.
yeah,
And like, yes, the shot making super impressive, and his hustle is super impressive. And I think he's going to be a good player, but I don't see the star. Like, I've seen people calling him like the next Brad Beal or something like that. I don't see that level of star power with
I
Keontae
think
George
that's
personally.
lazy too, because the Brad Bill was never this kind of defender potentially.
No, no, Brad Beal was not a two-way player the way Keontae George is. I think that
They do remind me,
Keontae,
like, if you were to like do the little Kobe Jordan like thing where their games were over the top of each other. Have you ever seen that video where like they put Kobe's moves right over the top of Jordan's in like a shadow film, and it
I've seen
literally,
them do stuff with yeah, I've
Kobe
seen those
duplicates him
before.
perfectly, right? If you
Yeah,
college Brad Beal, Florida Brad Beal, and George, they like
completely
splitting
different.
image. Offensively,
Those,
there's offensive
yeah, oh,
image.
like,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
if
I agree.
when I watch Keontae George, I'm like, that's literally Bradley Beal at Florida, but like a better defender. It's kind of crazy, but like it is a lazy comp otherwise.
I don't, I just don't see it though. I don't
Offensively,
know.
same size, same weight. Like, they're literally just eyes. Like, what my eyes tell me, I'm like, that reminds me a lot of Bradley Beal. But I get why there's question marks with that. But I just watching them, I go, okay, I understand that I'm watching Keontae George, but why does he keep reminding me of Bradley Beal? Like, it happens a lot. Like, I have to watch and go, okay, he's a better defender. He's a better shot maker right now. Like, I have to sit there and talk myself through it. So, anything else about this tier? Because I think there's some interesting ones in the next tier, and then we start getting into the late first.
Nah, I have no look. I like Terquavion Smith. I have no problem with you putting him in the top 10. Honestly, zero. Like, I'm not there yet, but I could get behind it.
Look, I'm going to ride I've seen him in person more than any other scout, unless they've lived here too. And I'm fine with understanding that, like, there is some bias there, but I have to realize as like at an evaluator, and I don't call myself a scout because that's not what I am, but at an evaluator, as somebody who cares about this stuff and wants to do this stuff and have a good time with it and hopefully turn into something with it. But that kid, I watched him last year, and I watched him get blown by some of the worst offensive players in the ACC. It was horrible. I mean, it was like, he's over at the 3-point line. That guy just scored a layup. And like, now he's planting his feet. He's moving his feet side to side well laterally. Like, I don't want to spin forever on him. I've told you that. I've texted you that 1,000 times. But like, he can score at all 3 levels, and he's not a stout anything else by any stretch, but he can do the things I need him to do as an NBA player. He's very, 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 very Jamal Crawford if he could play a little better defense. So just want to throw that out there. Next tier, we're going to roll through. So Anthony Black at 11, Gigi Jackson or Gregory Jackson, whatever people are calling him in the draft world right now. I think on my website I have it as the only guy with a modified name. It looks ridiculous when you scroll past it. But Gigi Jackson, Cason Wallace at 13. We'll talk about that because you mentioned that. Grady Dick at 14, and then the Pepperdine kid, Maxwell Lewis at number 15. So you mentioned Gigi already, or not Gigi, I'm sorry. You mentioned Cason Wallace already. We hadn't really touched on Maxwell Lewis before publicly, or really privately either, I guess, would be my point, why I want to talk about it. Grady Dick is intriguing because of the shooting ability. Anthony Black, I kind of want to talk off recording a little bit about because I'm having some question marks of why I even have him at 11, but a lot of people have, like, general consensus of everybody, whether it's somebody I talk to behind the scenes who don't post it, or whether it's somebody I talk to who has it up on whatever site. Like, he's pretty much in the top 11 with every person I know, and it makes me feel better because I trust people's opinions a lot more than I probably should sometimes, but he's there, and I'm okay with it now, but I obviously am going to have to see what happens with Nick Smith being gone. I think we're going to see some of that. We've seen some of that already. I think they're going to put focus other places and just kind of let him do his thing. He's a really smart, high IQ type of guy, so that's why I don't think it's going to matter with Nick Smith gone. But yeah, let's talk about Casey Wallace, because I saw a lot of things in the Alabama game that was quite frankly one of the worst games of the day, and just kept watching anyway. Because I mean, my father-in-law at one point, I'm sitting next to him, and he's more casual basketball fan than I am in terms of covering the stuff like this. But he was like, Kentucky just looks bad, and I go, buddy, they've looked bad all year. I just want you to know they have no quad one win. But I'm watching number 22 right there. It's like the guy with the long hair. I'm like, yeah. See that guy? He can defend really well. And he goes, Alabama has 24 more points than they do. And I'm like, yeah, but Casey Wallace is an all-NBA defender. So here we are. I want to talk about Casey Wallace. Where are we at with Casey Wallace at 13?
Look, I really don't think. I think honestly, I think we were okay. I'll put it this way. I think we were more excited about this Kentucky team going into the season on paper than the reality of what this Kentucky team
They're
is.
really bad.
They're not good. I mean, where is Damian Collins? I would like to, he's probably on like a milk carton somewhere in the middle of Iowa, Maybe he's on one in Alabama because Alabama, just got him on a milk carton.
Or Missouri, because they lost to Missouri. I'm just, I mean, not that Demoy Hodge and them aren't good, but,
Yeah, I got you. I mean, Samir Wheeler's good, but you can't have two guards that are going to struggle to shoot the ball consistently.
Yep.
That doesn't work. Jacob Toppin, he looks like he should be better than he is. I think
the Big Blue Nation loves him. I mean, they do. They love the kid.
He's a good player, but he should be a guy that can take over a basketball game for this team. And there's only so much that Oscar Tshiebwe can do on the board. By the way, I also don't like that they're using Tshiebwe as a primarily post-up player. I think he's better as just a pick and roll guy. Run the pick and roll to death with Samir Wheeler and Tshiebwe, or with Kaysen and Tshiebwe.
Bingo.
That should be your offense.
They didn't run him in pick and roll almost the entire first half, and he scored 4 points with the entire game, 6 points the entire game.
I don't understand it. He's such a good pick and roll player, and you're getting him to the rim with a defender on his back. That makes it's basic. I don't want to criticize Calipari too much. I want to talk purely about Casey Wallace. Look, I think that he is a symptom of Kentucky's mediocrity. I think that he's a great defender, moves his feet really, really well. I think the 3-point shooting is actually better than I thought it would be going into college. Look, it's not perfect, but he's a capable 3-point shooter. And the playmaking, I genuinely believe it comes down to the fact that they run the offense inexplicably they run the offense through a 5'9" guard who can't do anything except get to the rim.
Forget Wheeler's 5'9". It just perplexes me until you say it. I'm like, oh, that's right. 5'9", huh? Yeah.
Genuinely is very, very confusing to me. But I really do believe this could be a little bit of bias because I believe in Kentucky guards in general going to the NBA.
I'm glad you said it. I want to talk about it for a second. I'm glad you said it. Finish your point. I want to talk about it.
But I think that Casey Wallace is the next guy in the line of really, really good Kentucky guards who are a one-and-done player who are going to be a really good NBA guard.
Oh, I'm glad you said it. Okay, so that's where we disagree because I don't think he's going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, Devin Booker. I know I'm giving you track record that is unbelievable. That sucks, right? I'm giving you this beautiful track record. The defense is literally walk onto the Pelicans right now and succeed in the second round of the playoffs. I'm there. Fill the Dyson Daniels role immediately.
Yep.
However, I am not going to look at those shooting splits and go, I'm in. Because you know what? If I'm going to look at other guys' shooting splits that are worse that I have ahead of him, and I have them ahead of him, then I have to be consistent where his shooting splits are amazing, but there are things where I go, okay, bad offense. He's not getting the ball. Wheeler has the ball more. He's not shooting as often, right? He's taking 3 attempts a game from 3.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I don't think there's mechanic issues. but I want to see it in a setting where he's not the one having to take it because someone else held the ball for 18 seconds. Or
Yeah.
college, that's not 18 seconds, sorry. What's the equivalent? 26 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, and I don't want to sit here and pick him apart because, yes, he's probably going to rise. But I really only believe in the defense right now, and I'm really, really okay with that because I even agree 13 is probably too low. But I like other things that other guys provide me ahead of him. Right now, I would like if we did the thing, and I'm gonna save some of these comparisons for draft chat, other episodes, etc. But like, I'd love to just sit down with somebody and go Anthony Black or Casey Wallace right now, and you would probably say Casey Wallace right now. So yeah, let's just do it now because I'll save that one for someone else. Like I'll ask Tyler Rucker that in a few months. Spoiler: Tyler Rucker's coming on in April, but
I'm gonna honestly say Anthony Black.
That's why 11 and 13. That is not that bad, right?
But I think it's mostly a height thing, and I believe that Anthony Black is gonna become a good shot maker. It's also like he hasn't really been given the opportunity to have the ball in his hands, and I think that's kind of, it seems to me that's a bit what you're digging him for. Which is like, it's valid. I get why you're doing that because we haven't really gotten to see him as a playmaker. But I think
sure,
it's more because Cal trusts his more experienced player to run the offense rather than put the ball in the hands of your most talented freshman.
And that's the thing. That's what's awesome about the Jamal Murray, Devin Booker, etc. I just listed you is that they don't get the opportunity. Devin Booker didn't start a single game in college, and he got drafted in the top 15, and he was first team All NBA last year.
Yeah.
So, not comparing them whatsoever. Let me be completely transparent. I'm looking at the camera for this. Let me be completely. This is not a comparison. Not N-O-T. But people are gonna see the defense and go, I know what he's gonna give me on that side of the ball. All right, fine. And then they're gonna have all these other things that are just good enough to be like, well, I trust a Kentucky guard. And I doubt there's, by the way, I'm with you. I understand the Kentucky guard thing, but there are people right now that do this for a living and make a lot of money doing this and are trusted by teams that have won NBA championships, who I know for a fact there's no one right now that has that written down. Well, it's a Kentucky guard. And I know that. So I have to understand as an evaluator that I can't do that. I can't just be like, well, Kentucky guard, top 15. Got it. Like, I understand. Casey Wallace will probably be drafted in the top 10, and I'll still probably finish the season with him somewhere in the 15 range, and it's okay because I still think he's going to be a good NBA player because that's the difference in big boards that people need to understand. This is not a thing of I think he's going to be an all-star because he's in the top 15. I think an NBA team in the 15 range is going to value him more than I value him for a lot of good reasons.
Yeah, and that's what draft boards are about. I think
in the top 15 here because we talked about Black, Jackson, Wallace, Dick, and Lewis.
I think I should touch on Max Lewis and Grady Dick a bit. Grady Dick, I think we kind of know what he is. Like, very, very obvious 3-and-D player. And I hate to pigeonhole guys into that. And Grady Dick does show some off-the-dribble potential. So I don't want to give him the typical, like, oh, he just shoots threes and he's long and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, he has a legitimate dribble package. I don't really have any complaints with him in the top 15 at this point. I would have earlier in the season, but at this point, he's a 3-and-D player.
He's been consistent, I think, is why a lot of people are going to start rising him. He's been super consistent. Like, has not had a great game, has not had a bad game.
Yeah.
Just been very good.
And with I don't know. I don't know how to describe Max.
Siri's trying to apologize for that take. I don't know. The Max Lewis thing,
my only take on Max Lewis is just when I watch him play, he looks like an NBA player. I don't know how else to describe it to you other than that. Like, smooth jump shot, handles the ball well.
Trey Murphy.
Super long, super versatile. I don't think he's quite Trey Murphy.
I'm giving you like the Trey Murphy looked amazing. Like, he looked like he was an NBA player. And he was drafted 17th, and look what he turned out to be. Amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's and there were people that didn't even rank him last year or 2 years ago, whatever years he was now at this point. They're starting to blur together. But like that, I give Chuck all the credit in the world for that because he was like Chuck and I think are very similar after talking to the guy. I think we're very similar in the sense that, and I'm not speaking for him, I just want to be transparent about like how open he was about his evaluations, but what can an NBA team provide me? Or what can he provide an NBA team, vice versa, sorry. And that was why he was so sold on on who did I just give you the example of? Murphy.
Jared Murphy, yeah.
And I look at Maxwell Lewis and I go, at least the shot making right now. And I hate to be like, I think I have it written down. Like, so I have it tiered as like, what is the one thing I'm asking you the question earlier is like, what's their NBA ability? And that's not a strength. That's what is the thing that they're going to do? And it may not be truly strong right this moment, but what is something if they got 15 minutes on an NBA floor next year, week 12 regular season, maybe like mid-December, whatever it is, if they got tick, what was the thing that they were going to do for me and why are they on that floor? I wrote offensive repertoire. Because if he has the ball, great. He's going to do something with it. Like, he's not going to be a dud. He's not going to be a negative, on offense. That is what it is. He's going to have the ball and he's going to do well with it.
I mean, going into the season, my question was, does he have any range? And turns out the answer to that question is a very resounding yes.
Yes. And it's a talented Pepperdine team who stinks, and I don't understand. Also, the thing with him that's really confusing is, like, I didn't know this until I did some research and listened to pods of people I trust, and he only picked up the basketball, like, a handful of years ago. Did you know
really?
that? Yeah.
No,
he's new to basketball, which is, like, awesome because those guys work out a lot, too, which is wild. I'm just kidding. They really don't. But, like, you hear about Siakam, who, like, walked onto a basketball floor at like 16 and he ended up playing New Mexico State or whatever. He's really good. And look at him now, right? He's an all-NBA player. But I want to touch on one thing before we keep rolling because obviously for the sake of time too. But I think the one thing about Grady Dick that's really underrated, because some of this is going to be a soundboard for my takes that I want to make sure is transparent with my listeners and readers, I guess. But I think he's really, really intelligent. I think the basketball IQ is there, and I don't think people talk about that at all. I don't think I've heard a single person in any outlet talk about that. The kid can do this, the kid can do that, 3-and-D, whatever you called him, all that stuff. The kid's smart. When he doesn't have the ball in his hands, he knows exactly where to be. Now, credit to Bill Self. I get it. Bill Self's an unbelievable coach, and obviously one-time national champion last year. Probably a good chance he might win it this year. So, good coach. Not ruling that out. However, this is an example, I think, it's more the player than the coach because he knows what to do, and they trust him. That's the biggest thing. Bill Self trusts him on the floor in Big 12 play, Big 12 play, consistently. He started like every game. Like, Jalen Wilson's on that floor, right? Harris is on that floor. McCullough's on that floor. Like, those are experienced guys. And yet, this 6'8", 200-pound white kid who's just out there chucking threes and defending dudes. It's like, what is he out there for? Any other team? Makes sense. Kansas, I'm curious why he's out there, right? And it's just they trust him, and he's a smart kid. So let's keep rolling for the sake of I do want to talk about some of these guys in the 16 to 20 range. I do think it gets weird.
This is a.
I know you have some thoughts about some of them, and I will hamper some of those expectations for you a little bit because I do plan on moving some of these guys. I won't say super much, but Chris Murray 16, Brandon Miller 17. That's gonna be the one people were really, really perplexed by. Is why is Brandon Miller 17? We'll talk about that in just a moment. Unfortunately, Jalen Wilson 18, Jalen Clark at 19, and Kyle Filipowski at 20. As of right now, unless guys around him move more, Filipowski, I got to see him. He was the only guy on the Duke floor that looked like he was even not afraid to be out there other than maybe Derek shooting the ball. Like, Kyle, was in the moment, pushing people around, just an NBA big pro. It was just awesome to see. I don't know enough about him yet. I'm really perplexed, just in a couple different ways. No real bad question marks, just some weird stuff. Jalen Clark, I want to just be transparent about the fact that he's on there because Cason Wallace has that. He's basically Cason Wallace for me, but in the next tier down. So I want to leave it at that until I see more. And he will be a faller, but he won't be a out of the first round faller. He will fall. I'm just being transparent with you and the listeners. He's going to be lower because there are guys below him that I think have outplayed that area a little. We'll talk about them in a minute. But just want to be upfront that Jalen Clark is on there because I absolutely 100% right now think he can guard 1 through 3 in the NBA on his first day on the floor, and I value that, which is why again big boards are what they are. I want not to you, you know that, right? We talk about this all the time. I just want to be transparent with people when they hear this for the first time that there are things in the first round where I go, I don't care where they are because I think that is why the NBA team will value them. It's why I value them if I was paid by an NBA team to do this. So let's just address the elephant in the room. Brandon Miller at 17, Chris Murray at 16. Let's unpack it.
Look,
that's where we are. I know what you're going to say.
I'm with you on that.
Okay. I know. But why?
Look, Brandon Miller, I think could be higher. So here's what everyone loves about
could or
Brandon
should
Miller.
though. Be transparent. Could or should?
Could.
Okay.
Could.
I want people to know that. Could or should?
Because I understand, yes, he can shoot the ball. Yes, he's long and lanky, whatever. He still cannot get downhill. His handle is still super, super sloppy. I get it. Sometimes he like does something ridiculous and turns it into a shot. It's still super, super sloppy. And is a long ways away from being refined. And I think the defense is like okay. It's not anything I'd write home about. I don't know. I think that people are seeing how good his shot looks, which again, it looks phenomenal. Great mechanics, really clean release. Um, but he's a catch and shoot guy. And I think that Grady Dick is a better off the dribble player than him. I think Grady Dick is a better driver than him. I think that the upside with Brandon Miller is higher. Um, but I think that people are overvaluing him right now just because he's had some really, really good performances. I don't
So
know.
I like the thought process talking through them both. I want to point out the fact that like the Celtics or the Warriors right now would pick his you know what apart if he was on the NBA floor and they gave him 20 minutes.
100%.
The Warriors and the Celtics would absolutely. Now they do that to most NBA pros. Let me just be clear, but like
Yeah, but
that's a guy that you want playing against those guys in March or in February. Just obviously depending on where he gets drafted, that's really important. But I like the comparison too because I want to understand. Like I have it written down right now. Actually, I'll ask you first before I say anything. Where are you with him as a defender? Because you talked a lot about offensive stuff, and that's what people are going to do all cycle. But I think I think right now the switchability on defense is what his NBA skill is.
I
Other than
think,
catch and shoot, that's an apparent obvious.
but like, I haven't seen him use his length well enough
I
defensively.
haven't either. I'm with you.
That's
I'm
my
with you.
issue. Is like, he's one of those guys who, on paper, the defense should be there more than it is. Um, and I get it. He's super athletic. He's super long. Like, his footwork is okay. Like I don't know. I just think that he has some pretty significant holes that if you draft him in the top 10, you are going to need to fix them right away, or you're going to miss out on a player who is significantly less flawed and will have a much higher impact sooner. You have to really be confident in your development team if you draft Brandon Miller.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend forever on Brandon Miller because we're getting to the point where I like the conversation about the rest of the board, the last 10 more than I like this tier. This tier is my least favorite because I told you when I started this where I'm like, you know what? And it was funny because at the time when I talked to Chuck, I was like, I told him about my point I made to you about I have the first 16 I'm pretty in love with, like 80%. I'm like, okay, this is 80% I think NBA players.
Yeah.
And then he was like, so who's 17? That was like his first question. I go, that's a really good question. And it was Chris Murray at the time. And literally the night I posted this, I switched them. I switched Murray and Miller because I think Murray's just a better capable scorer at every level. And that's
Yeah, I agree.
right now what I'm going to, if they're par and par, Murray's a better scorer at every level, especially in the mid range, which is why
I mean,
that was just, and he scored 33 the other night against Indiana. Like, boom, there you go. There was the resume bump I needed. So, not that I needed it, but there it is. You know, he did it against a good defensive team, one of the best defensive teams in the Big Ten. So I don't want to talk about Jalen Wilson right now because I've got some things I want to work on. Like I have some pieces and stuff in the works, and I want to work with Jalen Wilson a little bit more. I want to dive him a little bit because I know you and I agree. We both like him. We both have him in a justifiable place. For transparency, if you don't mind sharing, where do you have him right now?
I think I have him in the 15 range,
Yeah,
honestly.
so 15 to
Like
18 is perfect.
he's a really good player. I think he's an NBA player.
Perfect. So, and we're not ageist, and he's 22, and he's just going to walk on the floor and just be able to hold his own.
Exactly. He's a better Akai Baji.
So next here, 21, Deron Holmes, Bryce Sensabaugh, 22, Jet Howard, 23, Baba Miller, 24, and Taylor Hendricks, the UCF stud who is rising up boards rapidly. And I'll be honest, that's where I'm starting, justifiably so. That kid can play. And I honestly was a little bit behind the curve, and I waited, and well, he ended up in the top 20. So, the top 25. So, Taylor Hendricks can play that. I have nothing else to point out. This is obviously where you react to stuff. So, other than Deron Holmes, we'll talk about him before we finish this tier. I want us to go somewhere other than Deron Holmes because I know we both agree. So, Deron Holmes is 21, right? What about pick out something from 22 Sensabaugh, 23 Howard, 24 Baba, and 25 Taylor Hendricks? Where would you like to go?
So I actually really like Bryce Sensabaugh. Um, I've talked
As
about
do I.
this. I've talked about this with Darian actually. He kind of fills a very specific role, and I think that with him, it's going to really depend on where he gets drafted to, because he's a player that you're going to use in mismatches a lot. he has the ability. He has this really. It's weird for his size. He has a really really quick first step and gets the hoop really really quickly. His jumper, again, please do not think I'm calling this kid mellow, but his jump shot from the mid range does look a bit mellow-esque to me, doesn't it?
That could be the inspiration for it. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
loved I loved Melo as a kid. He's top 3 player of all time for me, favorite
it's
wise, and I
just
loved just acting like I was Melo out there shooting. Like it's a fun shot to replicate. It really
it
is. I
is.
mean,
It's
even if
just
it's just that simple, you know.
the way that he kind of like jab steps, one dribble, rise up over a guy, like very, very mellow-esque. Um, I think because of his build, I think it's going to be awkward for him defensively in the NBA at times. I think he's probably going to get relegated to the corner on defense and just, there will be times where teams hunt him a bit. Um, but I think that the offensive upside for me is really, really high as a post scorer and just as a guy who can attack off the dribble, can catch and shoot for three. And I think that he moves his feet well enough defensively for me to justify him as a first round pick. He doesn't have to be an all world NBA defender in my book. I don't think that's his game. I think that the way that he is going to be attacked in the NBA, he has to be able to move his feet well, get around screens. And I think that he'll be able to do that. And so I think that, obviously not a top 20 pick, and I completely agree with that. But I personally have him in the 25 to 30 range, but I could justify him being um, somewhere in that 21 to 25 range as well.
So I just want to get this out there because I think it's hilarious. Titus and Tate made a point about Chris Holtmann. For those who don't know, that's Ohio State's basketball coach. How he's honestly not happy that he's getting all these, one and done players that used to be two and dones for him, and now it's Malachi Branham last year. Imagine this team with Malachi Branham; they're probably a top 15 in the country, honestly. Yep. And I'm not. That's a dead point. I'm stealing that from Titus and Tate. I don't care. But the thing about Sensabaugh, I don't want to spend forever on this, but like I have him at 22 and Jet Howard at 23, and I think preseason Jet Howard was top. Like that first 2 weeks of the season, people were super high and updated their boards, and they had him in the lottery, and all while saying I could see that. I ultimately have Sensabaugh at 22 and Jet Howard at 23, and Jet Howard has a more NBA friendly body. So I guess the question I wanted to talk about a little bit was, does Bryce Sensabaugh's body scare you as a 6'6" wing who's a little heavy for his size at the NBA level, but athletic, and nonetheless, he can move, but he can basically only guard twos. So does the body scare you?
I mean, David Roddy's an NBA player, is he not?
David Roddy can't score like Bryce Sensabaugh can. So I guess that's a good point. I guess because if he has David Roddy's body, but he can score from three, then why don't I have him any higher? I guess Okay, so I like that a little bit. I don't like it per se, like because Roddy's 6'7", 248.
Yeah, Roddy's a little bit bigger, but like point being, like you can be a little bit of a more heavy set dude
and still be able to hold your own.
Still be able to hold your own in the NBA. I think Jet Howard is interesting. Like I honestly need to see him play a bit more. But I think the thing that people really like about Jet Howard is his ability to take guys off the dribble, right?
Clearly, people love that stuff.
we know he can shoot.
Yeah.
Like that was a given coming into college. But I think that people have been really impressed by his ability to take guys off the dribble. I think that's what makes him a potential lottery pick. But I think that he doesn't have enough, like, I don't know, just the shot creation, the individual shot creation when he's, going one-on-one doesn't really quite do it for me yet. Look, again, he can take guys off the dribble. That's fine. He can catch and shoot. That's fine. But I don't see him being able to break a guy down and do a jumper consistently in the NBA. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's Jet Howard, I think, is worth a conversation, but I think you said everything that I would have said. So I'm very happy with the assumption on where we have him. I think we probably have him in a similar range, and I think he's an NBA scorer. I think he can. I think there's things he's going to be able to do for me as an NBA team, and I'm very happy with them. I want to touch on 24 and 25 before we talk about Holmes for a few minutes, because then we got to save time for the last five guys, because I feel really good about top 25, and the last five, honestly, I was starting to pick straws because I haven't gone deep enough into the second round yet, which I have now. So I've got, don't worry, the final five, none of them will probably be there. Just pointing that out before I get there. So Baba Miller, I'm really excited about, because I talked to you right before we started recording about how some of the international film I'm going to give you a bump up automatically because you played against pros and you've played in systems that are a lot more complex. And you've at 18, 17 when he got to Florida State, 18 when he's going to play. Baba Miller has at least some tape that I can go, wow, okay, there's something there with a 6'10" guy who can shoot the ball really well. At least I think. We'll see. Obviously, I think it's bad for him. He's going to jump right into a Florida State offense that is very complex as well, and deep into the ACC. Like, this kid comes back like this week. I'm very excited. This is my formal announcement. I get to see him on February 1st. So very intrigued look. Going to take plenty of notes. Want to understand exactly what I'm getting from him. I really like him. I think he's going to rise for me, and I'm going to not feel bad about it because I just like a lot of the tools. And then Taylor Hendricks, I thought of this 15 minutes ago, like when we started getting to this tier, and I'm like, I just want to get it out and see what you think. I think I like Taylor Hendricks because even though he's 6'9", 210, he's an inch taller than Jarris Walker, and he's 30 pounds lighter, but he looks exactly like Jarris Walker, and he can shoot really well. So I think I'm falling in love with the type of player more than, and I'm falling into that Dalen Terry thing I hated last year. But I think I'm starting to love Taylor Hendricks, and I think the world is starting to love Taylor Hendricks, and I'm just going to fall right into the trap. But I think the kid can be an NBA player.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, dude. He's a very smooth operator. Like, just his jumper looks, you said it, his jumper looks really, really good. Um,
The
I
landing's
need
a
to
little
see.
confusing. Like, he lands funny. Like some guys will just like, and even NBA players 10 years in will like go up in one direction and land in another.
Yeah,
Well, that can create completely big like swings in the way you release the ball, depending on the NBA defender. And obviously, it can lead to injuries if you're not careful. Like if
yeah,
you're an idiot, just land on your ankle. Like that's not, yeah. So just there are things about the shot that like when it's coming down, I don't like, but when it's going up, it looks awesome and it goes in.
yeah.
So I can't really harp anybody for thinking one way or the other.
I mean, he's a guy I actually want to watch because I was a bit late to the Taylor Hendricks party. Everyone was talking about this kid. I'm like, Taylor Hendricks, who is this guy? So I'm a little bit late to the Taylor Hendricks party, but I'm starting to understand the hype a little bit more. Um, Baba Miller, I'm excited for. I like some people are like, oh, he hasn't played yet, blah blah blah. I mean, the archetype of player that Baba Miller is, and the fact that he showed something over in Europe are two things that just really excite me about him as a prospect. And he literally is the kind of guy that Leonard Hamilton like dreams of. Leonard Hamilton has anyone who's watched Florida State basketball for more than like 5 years knows that Florida State is a bunch of dudes from like 6'7" to 7'2" who all have preposterously long arms, some of whom can shoot the ball. And
Some is a strong term, but I understand what you mean.
yeah, on some teams more than
Some.
others. There's usually
Sometimes they're the worst shooting team in the ACC, like the last 4 years. But
there's usually a guy on the team who is
I'm with you.
ridiculously long. Like last year it was John Butler.
Yep. This year it's him. It's Baba Miller this year.
Baba Miller. So maybe they'll be. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be kind of like what happened with Cam Whitmore and Villanova, I think, where like Whitmore was out for the first few games. They stunk. Whitmore comes back. They go on a 5-game win streak. And I think that Baba Miller is going to have that same kind of effect for Florida State, where like, yeah, the team is like on paper, the team is not really that good. But when you inject the guy who is supposed to be the best player on your roster into the team, garbage that he got suspended, by the way. I want to put that out there. His suspension was nonsense.
Asinine completely. And I understand it's a rule, but I don't care. Cancel me. It was stupid.
Terrible. But I think it's going to have that same effect of like, you're injecting a dude who is 6'11". He's got to have something off the dribble, which I haven't seen enough of the film to know whether or not he's a great off the dribble guy. But
there's some stuff with Spain that was really. I'll send you some clips. There was some stuff from Spain that was that was actually the thing that I was like, oh, hold on, this guy should be my first round. Like this dribble, like there was some dribble stuff that I was impressed by. I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
I got it because Synergy didn't really have any of the
Spain stuff.
Film,
yeah,
unfortunately. But. Look, I do think he's going to probably be an NBA player. So look, I can see him at 24. I can see him falling if it really doesn't work out, but I don't think it's not going to work out.
So I'm going to play a game with you on this last guy because then we have to move on because I would like to stay as close to an hour as possible for the sake of my computer imploding. But I do because I think there's some fun conversations in the final 5 that I'm just going to be transparent with you about because I've told you some of them. So sell me, which you don't have to because I have him at 21, but sell me slash mostly the viewers and listeners on Deron Holmes in 30 seconds. So you got to
30
like
seconds.
Jeopardy me this, right?
Yeah,
And then
I can do that
give
easily.
me his NBA comp.
So the reasons to draft Deron Holmes: one, really hard worker; two, runs the floor super, super effectively; three, really good shot blocker; and four, legitimate NBA passer. Now, I do have a couple concerns with him. I think, ironically, as a big man, the rebounding needs to be better. But look, he is a very, very similar player to JaVale McGee in my eyes, and that guy's been in the league for almost 10 years. I think his upside's Robert Williams, but that's a little bit of a stretch, but I think he can play that sort of role for an NBA team.
I didn't clock you. I think that was impressive. So you gave, and it was honestly, I thought you were going to finish it and then be like, and his NBA comp is this, and you gave me two ends of the spectrum. Obviously, I already knew both of them, so I thought that was fascinating. Of course, I like everything you said. The motor's there, the moves really well without the ball. That was the first thing I told you. Like you had him ranked higher than most people we know and talk and trust. And I had yet to get to that range yet because I told you I was preparing for January 1st and trying to get this right and try to break this down. Da 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 da. I was like, all right, I'm on Deron Holmes now, and I texted you. I didn't say a word. It was. You can go find this. Obviously, we talk all the time, but like, you can find the timestamp. I texted you like probably within an hour or so, and I said, I'm on Deron Holmes now, and I'm gonna go away, and I'm gonna come back. And he landed at 21, which is probably not where you thought he would land for what you know about me by now. But all of that stuff, like throw him on the floor for 18 minutes in a playoff game in a few years, and he's gonna be fine. And I'm looking up JaVale McGee right now because you mentioned how long he's been in the NBA. And, like, I think he's a better passer than JaVale McGee. I want to be transparent. You know what? Let's play a game. What year do you think JaVale McGee was drafted? Because I just learned it right now.
It's he's been in the league. So he was in the league with John Wall, so it has to be 2011, 2010.
2009. You were right on. That's crazy. Like,
Oh,
just and
he's carved out
and
a
I think
role.
right now he's a better passer than JaVale McGee ever was. I
Oh,
really
it's
do.
not even. JaVale McGee was never that good of a
But
passer.
that's the comp, and that was what worked. And JaVale McGee wasn't a bad passer, so I
No, he
think I'm with
wasn't.
you.
No.
It's there. No, I love that. That's why I wanted to see if you could do it in 30 seconds because I know we're both high on him. All right, let's hit the last tier in the last let's say 5 minutes as carefully as we can. Number 26, Derek Lively the second. Jordan Walsh 27, Jalen Slauson 28, Trace Jackson Davis, who by the way just now lost to Northwestern by 1 in Assembly Hall. Just wanted to put that out there. Obviously, this will come out way after the Wisconsin. I think, honestly, by the time this comes out, the Wisconsin game will have happened, which is Saturday at like noon. So, whatever. Who cares? But anyway, Trace Jackson Davis at 29 and the Houston 6'2 guard Marcus Sasser at 30. So, we've talked about Slauson both on my pod and on other pods plenty of time. We'll just say that and move on. Other pods as many a time. We're not. I can't do any more Jalen Slauson. I've had plenty of him. I think he's good. I'm gonna let him play the rest of the conference, and I'll keep thinking about it. But any thoughts on Sasser, Davis, or Walsh? Because Lively I'll end with.
So honestly, Walsh isn't in my first round. Sasser isn't in my first round.
So Walsh is not either. I just want to be transparent with you. He
The
was there
the
on January 1st. He was removed on January 8th.
so
It's
the
January
two
8th
guys,
today.
the two guys I actually have in my first round instead. um, I've got Terrence Shannon Jr. and I've got Baylor Sharp. Those are my two replacements for those guys. I think Jordan Walsh just has not shown me enough to justify him being a first round pick, especially without Trevon Brazile and Nick Smith. Jordan Walsh needs to be the second guy on that team. I know. Actually, sorry, Ricky Council should be in the first round. I'm instead of
He's
Baylor Scheinman, I would
I don't
rather
want
have
to
Ricky
overstep
Council.
next month. I'm not going to do this every month with you or with anybody, quite frankly. That's not going to be the theme of Draft Chat, but they're going to be posted every month on February 1st. And like, I, I'm just, Ricky Council is just very quickly for YouTube is doing this right here. For those that aren't
He's
on YouTube, the little draft up sign on your iPhone that's just type in stock and it pops up. That little up sign on the stock market, that's what Ricky Council is doing. Shout out to Ricky
is
Council. He's a Durham kid. He's really, really good. I believe in the character as well. But go ahead.
he's super super talented. And Terrence Shannon I think is a very similar player to Jalen Wilson. Um, Sasser for me, my one gripe with Sasser is the efficiency. I think that he has some games where he looks like an elite scorer, um, a top level defender because anyone in Kelvin Sampson's system is going to be a top level defender. But I think that he has too many games where the number of shots, overtake the number of points, and that's a bit of a concern for me. I also don't totally have faith in his ability as a playmaker. It depends on if you see him as a 1 or 2 in the NBA, but I think because of his size, he's probably a 1. So I think he's definitely an early second round pick for me. But I do have a few guys. Kaluma as well is another guy that I think should be in the first round conversation. But Trace Jackson Davis, I love Trace Jackson Davis. We've definitely talked about this before, but like the board is back, everybody. Like power forwards are a thing again. You see the teams running like the twin Eiffel Towers kind of stuff. Like the second guy is not a second center. It's just a big four. Like, and Trace Jackson Davis is a great passer, a legitimate rim protector. And I get that the post play is not quite what it used to be, but if you operated out of the post with Chase Jackson Davis, you are probably going to be successful on a lot of possessions.
Well,
Um,
so funny you say that. Have you looked at his stats from Northwestern tonight that I just pointed out?
I have not.
I'm going to read them to you and the listeners because I think it's very important for what you said, and I'm going to defend you right here. He had 18 points, 24 rebounds. Hold on. You ready? This is the part I'm really excited about. 8 assists.
Yep.
Mike Woodson, I don't care. I'm going to call Mike Woodson out. They gave him the ball in every facet, and they brought it up with him multiple. And I was like, thank you, God. Give this kid the ball. Like, just let him. Just they're missing. Is it Xavier Johnson? God, I can't remember who's out.
Yeah, they're missing Xavier Johnson.
They're missing Xavier Johnson. So like, I brought this up with Ryan. New Year's resolution: give him the freaking ball, and they did, and they lost by 1. I get it. It's not great for my example. I understand. It sucks, but. He shot 42% from the field, 66% from the line, and 24 rebounds, 8 assists, 4 blocks, by the way. I forgot to say that. 4 blocks.
Yep.
3 turnovers, so he had the ball more, right? So if 3 star turnovers to 8 assists, whatever that percentage is, and 18 points.
Still very good.
Just like I'm not that I don't need this stuff to validate my thoughts on these guys, especially for comparing the NBA stuff, but like this backs up everything I've said for 2.5 months. Like this one game, just ta-da!
It's what he can do. Like,
sucks. I hate it.
He is the best player out of the post in college basketball right now. He just is.
I don't think there's even I think there's a gap. Like I can't even give you the next guy. Like
maybe
Sonogo,
Timmy?
maybe, or Timmy. Yeah.
Timmy. No, Sonogo's more of a pick and roll guy though as well.
There's just so many guys that can do it well, but like I think the gap is significant. Like Davis, and then next, like just whoever wants to be next. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
I like that though. I like that you. I'm trying to figure out the way to address this next part because I all the Sasser stuff is warranted. He'll probably fall a little bit. That's not a. I do want to see the kid in person. I'm very very excited to see him in person. Same thing with like the UCF thing I forgot to mention earlier. They just. I live in North Carolina for those who don't know, and East Carolina is in the American. They're not very good otherwise, but this year they at one point were 3rd in the conference. So shout out to plus 25,000 preseason pick. East Carolina, but UCF came like literally 4 days ago, and I couldn't go. It's just far enough of a drive. It didn't make sense for where it was, but I really wanted to see Hendricks so bad. I almost dropped what I was doing that night. It was like, I'm going to go do something, and I'll be right back 4 hours later. Taylor Hendricks was worth that, I think, for how intriguing he is. But, yeah, Walsh, I think you said everything I'm going to have to say for now because I think the kid just isn't doing what he should with the opportunity he's given. I think he's too fluid, too passive. I don't think I want to digress any further, so I'm going to end with Lively, if that's okay with you. Again, I want to be clear on the John Shire stuff. It is hard to watch him coach a basketball team right now for the cluster of talent that he has, and I think that's some of Lively, not all of. I think there's just a lack of confidence right now, and I'm not saying that NC State's this stout defensive team and people can get tired of me talking about him, but I got to see him play against a decent defensive team, now quad 1 win. And there are things there that just I want to go, yeah, duh, like Jalen Duren type of upside of, as an offensive guy, as a athleticism, all that. Like I want to sit here and be that. And I wanted to give you a better example that wasn't last year. I wanted to give you one from 5-10 years ago that was like this upside that we bought into that turned out well. Athletic, 7'1". If you can give me one, that's great. There's not a great track record of 7'1" guys like that. Joel Embiid, sure, if you want to say that, but like, I think there was a little, but
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm
yeah.
trying to say. Like, even with a guard, if you want to sit here and go, whatever, like the guy should have been top 5 pick, yada yada yada. Lively fits every bit of that bill, and I think there's a lack of confidence. I think there's a lack of understanding pick and roll. Like, just like he gets lost, and it just was confusing because I don't understand why. Because he's big and he's long and he's athletic and he should at least know where to be, at least in drop a couple times. Like, it just, I don't know. I don't want to be harsh, but like, if he falls 24 spots, are you gonna fault me for that?
From here?
From where is he right now? 26.
26.
If I drop him 24 spots, are you gonna fault me?
No, I think I have him at like 40, 45 right now.
Okay. And I think a lot of people are going to end up there right now because I struggled. Like, I honestly just want to read the excerpt at this point because like I'm struggling right now to even like come up with the way to describe it to you. So while I'm pulling it up, where are you at with Lively? What are the things what are the strengths right now? What are you really excited about for him as an NBA player? Oh, that's not good. Thanks for filling my time here.
Look,
I'm pulling it up. It's almost loaded now. If it makes you feel better.
I think the things that I'm excited about are what we saw in high school.
Yeah,
He's
that's tough.
long, he's athletic, he should be a good rim protector. And like there's enough range there that like every once in a while maybe he can be a pick and pop threat. Like, but you know what the thing to me that's been really frustrating as someone who had him really high on my board originally. That Filipowski has like completely outclassed him. Like Filipowski's outclassed him. Even like Joe Young, who is not a good college big man by any stretch of the imagination.
He had like 21 in that game, by the way.
Has shown me more this year,
which is sad.
Multiple games than Derek Lively has. And like, I don't know, man. I'm honestly at a loss when talking about Derek Lively at this point because I was so high on him going into the season, and now it's like the more I watch him play, the more questions I have about him even being draftable.
Yeah, I think right now, I'll end up getting to that like fringe second draftable tier because it sucks. I think that's how bad of a fall he's going to have for me. I wrote exactly this. I said, there's no doubt he is a talented big man prospect with measurables. And I think that's the word I want to address really fast that we get closed up, is the measurables are awesome. It'll make any, I think, and to quote, that would make any scout or NBA GM blush. I think it's because he's 7'1", 2 if you want to measure him that high, and has probably a 7'4" wingspan, 7'5" if it's perfectly long, and like not that skinny or weak, like 212, 220, depending on that range. But either way, tall, lengthy frame, obviously, and if he's getting out-positioned by guys that are shorter than him and wider than him and at the college level, upperclassman nonetheless, DJ Burns was a player of the year in the Big South, but he's getting outclassed there. I wrote, what are NBA players going to do to him? And it's not going to be good. So I think the G League would be really good development, and I think I wrote at the end, and I think we talked about it, so we can end with that, is I think returning for a sophomore year might actually not be a bad thing for him, except the coaching.
I was gonna say he might have to transfer.
Bingo. I think that might be what happens.
He might have to. If Shire is gonna struggle with Duke this badly, if I'm a player who has NBA aspirations, I would not want to tie my potential to this guy.
I'm with you.
I wouldn't.
Such a bleak ending. So give me one player right now. You mentioned two already, a couple here, but like who's someone that is maybe a sleeper that can rise up into the first round? Someone you don't have in your first round right now. We'll end with that.
Give me a sec to look it over, comb through the.
I'm naming a couple right now where you look it up. So like guys I don't have in the first round that I'll address: Kaluma, Terrence Shannon, Coleman Hawkins, Khalil Ware, Dylan Mitchell, Ricky Council, Trayvon Brazil, I think Noah Clowney, Tyrese Hunter, Tucker DeVries, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Adama Sanogo, Mark Mitchell, Isaiah Wong, Tyrese Proctor. I think I just gave it to you by accident. Zulis Tubelis. Yeah, I did.
You did. I've had. So actually, it's funny. I actually have had Isaiah Wong in my first round for a while.
So that doesn't count. But go ahead, Isaiah Wong, and we'll get out of here.
Isaiah Wong would be one. The one that I actually want to mention is Adama Sanogo.
Okay,
Um,
I like it. That's good.
I love Adama Sanogo. I did a thread on him a few months ago about how he's turned from a guy who was just a pick and roll threat and has now expanded his game from pick and roll to pick and pop. Um, I think he's got legitimate small ball big upside. He's super strong, does not get bullied by bigger players. Runs the floor really, really well. Again, really good in the pick and roll. Like kind of like Deron Holmes in a sense where he's willing to set multiple screens in a possession. Um, and I just think those are the kind of things that, like, yes, he's slightly undersized, but if we're gonna have the four be back in the NBA, I think Adama Sanogo is a first round pick.
I like it. I'm gonna leave with this. Plug your stuff and let's get out of here because it's been a while, and that's okay. I enjoyed it. I wanted to be transparent. I had a really good time. Obviously, check out the full big board link to the description below. TwoPointersPodcast.com. Go ahead and get your plugs in, and we'll get out of here.
You can follow me on Twitter at jmendel12. It's pretty much my plugs nowadays.
Twitter's good. It'll be also probably on the screen, like every other guest lately with YouTube. It'll be right here on the screen as well. So the entire episode. So it'll be pretty apparent where you can find you. Thank you again for coming on, my friend. I do trust everything that you have to say when it comes to this stuff. Obviously, we hold each other accountable in our opinions, and that's why you're here. So thank you for the time. This has been the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. We'll see you later.